Jake from Fin Feather Fur in Milan, and today we're at the Lake Erie Fish Research Unit in Sandusky, Ohio. And today we have two of the biologists with me. I got Brian and Zach, and they're going to show us around the place. Guys, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Hi, I'm Brian Schmidt. I'm the harvest assessment biologist here at the station. Been here in my current position since 2018. I did my undergraduate at Wisconsin-Stevens Point in fisheries management, and I have a master's from the University of Toledo.
My name is Zak Slagle. I'm also a fisheries biologist here. I've been here for about 5 years along with Brian. Did my undergrad at Virginia Tech. I got my master's from the University of Florida, and I run our trawl survey, our smallmouth gillnet survey, and tag a lot of smallmouth bass.
Let's see how these guys do all that. Now I'm joined by Eric. Eric, you are the station supervisor here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the grounds itself and then the staff you have working under you?
Sure. So we've actually, the Divisional Wildlife has a pretty long history in downtown Sandusky. In the late 1800s, we actually ran a hatchery down here that operated until the Put-in-Bay hatchery came online. In about 1925, we purchased the grounds that we're currently on and built facilities to do Lake Erie assessment and the management activities, law enforcement activities out of. The buildings that you see now have all been built at different times. I think the most recent is the building behind us that was built in around 2001 or so. But we have both Lake Erie law enforcement and fisheries management personnel here. Law enforcement tends to have anywhere from 2 to about 8 staff in the office on any given day when the officers aren't out in the field. But they do sport and commercial fisheries enforcement, as well as all the licensing for like our charter guides and for our commercial industry as well. On the fish side, we have 8 staff full-time here, myself and the Lake Erie program administrator, and we have 4 biologists, a research vessel operator, and a full-time technician. We also have a variety of seasonal employees. In the summertime, our numbers here almost double with the natural resource technicians that we hire seasonally to do assessment work and to do our creel survey.
Okay.
So variety of activities that take place today. I'm sure the staff are going to walk you through a lot of them, but everything that we do focuses on assessment of the Lake Erie Fishery to include not only population status of our most important fisheries, but also assessing harvest, both our sport harvest and our commercial harvest on Lake Erie.
Okay, and then Eric, maybe a little bit about yourself. Give us a little education background.
Sure.
And how long you've been here.
Sure. So I've been here since 2005. Started here as a biologist doing some of the projects that you'll hear the other staff talk about today. I have been in my current role since 2017. My bachelor's degree is from Michigan State University in Fisheries and Wildlife, and then a master's from South Dakota State University in Fisheries Science.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for letting us tour the facility today. It was great talking with you.
Absolutely. Good to see you again.
All right. Zach, what's the name of this vessel we're standing on? What do you guys do on here? Just really explain what it is and how you use it for your research.
Yeah, so this is our research vessel Explorer. This vessel has been used since 2003, and it's our big trawler. So this is a 53-foot aluminum vessel. What we do is we actually drag a net across the lake bottom and try and catch fish with it. So we don't have the net right here, but you can see back here, there's a reel that the net would go on, and then there's typically 2 doors that go along the bottom and spread out the net. And what we're looking to do is we're trying to catch little walleye and perch. So the young of year is what we call them, the ones that are spawned this year will start to be big enough to be caught in the net in July, August. And then we can go out, we can take a bunch of trawl samples, and that will give us our recruitment index, or when we refer to a hatch, like how good is the walleye hatch, how good is the yellow perch hatch. This boat is what generates that.
Okay.
So none of the biologists, we're not qualified to drive this boat. We actually have a dedicated vessel operator or boat captain who takes us out and keeps us safe. I run the trawl doors off of the controls down below, and then we normally have a crew of a total of about 6 people, so that we can go, we can operate the doors, we can drop the catch, and then we'll identify the fish by species, we'll count them, and then we'll measure a subset of them. So this boat is what generates our recruitment index in the Western Basin of Lake Erie.
Okay, has this been out already and used this year, and what have you guys done with it this year if it has been out?
Not quite. So we run that survey from May through September, and we go out 2 or 3 days every month and go and catch all our fish, and then that generates, we actually use the August index specifically for our hatch index.
Okay. And then is that anywhere in the water column you guys are pulling that big net, or is it mostly towards the bottom?
This is all on the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're dragging it along the bottom, and little fish can get in there. We don't catch a whole lot of adult fish because they can see the net and avoid it.
Okay.
But we'll end up catching, 1,000 or 3,000 little tiny fish that big.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, let's go take a look around and see what else is on this boat. So here we are in the helm. Who operates this, and how much interaction do you have with the captain on when you're doing your surveys?
So we have a vessel operator at our station. His name's Jim McPhee. He's from Huron, and he actually has a biologist background. So he's really helpful for not only keeping us safe and getting us where we need to go, but also helping. I communicate with him a lot, just to try and make sure that the data that we collect are accurate. So yeah, we work together. It's pretty much a survey that we do together.
Yeah, and so when you say determine those locations, how are those spots determined for where you guys are going to be pulling the net?
Yeah, so we have either, depending on the month, it's either 23 or 37 sites that are distributed everywhere from off of Huron through Maumee Bay, and then up to the Detroit River Plume and the corner of Ontario and Michigan waters. The sites are distributed across depth strata, so that means that we take the whole surface area of the Western Basin, break it up into similar depths, so 0 to 3 meters, 3 to 6 meters, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then the sites have been chosen to be allocated across those different depth strata in proportion to how much they take up of the Western Basin.
Gotcha.
And we actually we do this survey in coordination with Ontario, with their Ministry of Natural Resources and Forests. So we trawl at the same time as them in August, and we can actually combine our data and generate those hatch indices that we see.
Very cool. All right, well, we'll head back to the stern where all the real business happens back here. All right, Zach, what are we looking at here on the boat?
So this is my station. When we're trawling, I actually take over control of the boat from Jim, and these controls here allow me to throttle the engine. I can control whether we're going forward or reverse or in neutral, and I can control our direction here as well. So I'm in charge of making sure that the trawl net goes out correctly, and that we hit the specific speed. We're looking for 1.5 knots. In order to have a standardized catch every time we go out.
So that speed is determined basically on just to try to keep the science basically exact, like every time you're trying to keep the same speed, and how all that works?
Exactly. We're trying to have it standardized, so every time we trawl it should be the same.
Okay.
So same with the net, same speed. We let out different proportions of our cables based on how deep we are, all to try and get the net to be shaped and moving the same way every time we trawl.
Very good. All right, Zach, we made it all the way back here, so what's going to go on right where we're standing with this table here?
So if we were to be conducting a trawl right now, what would happen is the net would be on this big spool up top, and it would actually be hanging down here. When we'd start to deploy it, we'd just let it out, and then we'd have a biologist or a technician on either end of the boat that would transfer it from these hooks out to, normally we'd have doors. So they're just huge wooden things that look a lot like doors that go down, drag along the lake bottom, and they actually operate to spread out the net. So we'll drag that for 10 minutes, and then we'll pull it back up, and we'll reverse the process. So our technicians will unclip from the doors and clip onto the overhead reel. This will reel up, and then we'll end up with the cod end of the net, the very back end of the net where the fish are concentrated, and then we can flop that over onto here. This is our sorting table. So then we undo the net, let out all the fish out here, so that you can imagine, we might have 500 or 1,000 fish all flop out here. And then we can do the counting, weighing, measuring, identifying by species, that kind of thing.
Okay. Someone working with a clipboard then?
Yeah. So I'll be holding a clipboard. I'll be writing down all the data that we collect from the fish, and then the vast majority of fish we just toss right back overboard. We do keep a subset of perch for aging and stuff like that, but for the most part, we release all the fish that we're catching.
So most of the time you're focusing on perch, walleye, and I'm sure you're catching some of the emerald shiners. What are some of the trends you've seen from those three species over the last couple years?
So we'll go in order of optimism.
Okay.
So starting off with walleye hatches in the last 5 to 7 years have been the best that we've ever seen. We had our best walleye hatch ever 2 years ago, and we continue to see strong hatches. So that really forecast really well for the entire Lake Erie walleye fishery. Most of our walleye in Lake Erie are spawned out on the West Basin reefs off of the Davis-Besse nuclear power plant. And those walleye go throughout the lake. So we know that for years and years to come, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, we are expecting to have a really good walleye fishery because those fish are going to continue to grow.
Okay.
With yellow perch, on this side, they don't move as much. This side of the lake, we've had pretty good hatches, like around average for 7 or 8 straight years. So in the Western Basin, we have fairly strong populations that should continue into future years. In other areas of the lake, like the Central Basin off of Cleveland, unfortunately, we don't see those same big hatches. We've had very low hatches across the last 5 to 7 years. And the reasons behind that, we don't fully understand. It could be hypoxia, it could be prey-related, it could be a number of different things. There's a lot of research being done on that, and we still don't have a good understanding of it.
Okay.
With emerald shiners, unfortunately, their numbers have been down for about 7 straight years. We've had minimal catches in the Western Basin. We think that's probably because there's so many walleye in the lake.
Okay.
And it's not like we're not seeing any emerald shiners. We just catch a handful, whereas in big shiner years, we'll catch hundreds of them in a net.
Sure.
So their numbers are down, but it's not something that seems to be worrying because it's happened before.
Yeah. So for the walleye, what are some of the ingredients? Why have they been so good for the past 7 years? What is it about the lake?
Yeah. So we don't have a great understanding of that. Just like the perch recruitment, there's some suggestion that with walleye, higher water, like we've had in the last 3 or 4 years ago, higher water might be related to it. Our theory right now is that high water means that there's not as much wave action on the reefs where they're spawning, and that might be better for their survival. But we still don't have a great understanding of it. That's why we do this survey, because we can't reliably predict it just based on environmental conditions. We actually have to go out there and measure how many fish are out there.
What would you say about people that think it's just too many walleye, not enough shiners? Do you think that's all it is, or do you think there's something else that could be for the reason there's not a whole lot of perch out here?
I think there's a lot of different factors involved. We do some walleye diet analysis, and we don't see a whole lot of yellow perch in stomachs. I mean, it does happen, but it's pretty infrequent. They're mostly eating shad or white perch or some other kind of forage fish. They don't really like to eat yellow perch. So I would say we don't have a great understanding of why that is, but we don't really blame it on the walleye necessarily.
Sure.
There is, for perch, there's also some suggestion that that warmer winters are not as good for perch hatches, and colder winters are good for perch hatches because the eggs have longer time to develop in the pregnant female.
Okay.
And then be able to be spawned and have a lot healthier fish or baby fish when they come out.
Okay.
But we don't fully understand any.
Sure. When doing stomach content surveys of walleye, have you ever in your profession come across lead weights?
Nope.
Okay.
Sure have.
All right. Just wanted to see. I don't know if you have to put that in there, but I had to get it in there. Brian actually know each other. I worked here during 2019 creel season. Brian, if you want to explain a little bit what I was doing for you, that'd be great.
Yeah, so my responsibilities at this office is the harvest assessment biologist. It's shifting a little bit. We just had a new hire that's going to take over the creel survey for me this upcoming year. But basically my job is to estimate the number of fish removed from Lake Erie every year. So the creel survey interviews our sport anglers, and then there's another component which is the commercial fishery. So between those two things, we try and quantify how many fish are being removed by people every year, in addition to our fishery independent surveys like the trawl or the gill nets that are looking at, populations at large, what's coming in, and then mine is what's being removed from Lake Erie every year. So creel survey, we have 6 technicians that go from Toledo to the Pennsylvania line. They're visiting the major boat ramps and harbors, interviewing anglers and trying to get at how many walleye are harvested, how many yellow perch, how many angler trips we're taking every year. So
I was going to say, yeah, those questions I remember asking, it didn't even matter if I was talking to someone that was just using their boat just for fun. You know what I mean? I would still have to record that. What is some of that data doing, or why is that important?
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 components of the creel survey. There's boat counts and then the interviews. So we're counting every recreational vessel on Lake Erie, and without the interview, we don't know if they were fishing or just, going to Kelly's Island for the weekend. So, when we're doing our equations and calculations, we have to parse out those, just the guys out for a half-hour sunset cruise.
Sure.
For our boat counts. So
those creel surveys, you said those guys are going Toledo to Pennsylvania. Obviously, they're not covering that whole section. They almost have a smaller region that's broken up between those 6, right?
Yep. So.
And each one's doing about the same thing, going, like you say, boat ramps. And are you also asking those guys to still do measurements on fish? I remember doing that a few times. You didn't have to all the time, but every now and again, if you had time, you'd ask us to measure fish too.
Yep. We try and measure a couple hundred fish from each one of those 6 areas every year. And we use that information, so we get a harvest number for walleye, yellow perch, and then we pair the length samples that our creel clerks collect with our fishery independent data. So fish is similar size, we know how old they are, and basically the end product of the creel survey and the commercial fishery is harvest at age. So we want to know how many 3-year-old walleye harvested, how many 10-year-old walleye harvested. Same thing for perch. So as we're looking to the future, we know some of these bigger year classes are going to start falling off just from natural mortality, and we want to be able to kind of buffer against that when we're setting our regulations for the upcoming years, knowing what's being removed and what's coming up.
Gotcha. I'm going to try to see if I can remember as many of the questions as I can for the creel survey, and I just want to, so people get an idea of what I'm sure some of these guys maybe even watching have been approached by a creel guy before, but you basically say, when did you start fishing, when did you end fishing? How many people were fishing, correct? And then you would also ask how many fish you caught. There was a specific number code that you'd write down for that fish.
Yep.
You would ask if you caught any, or if you released any, either short or long. And is there anything I was missing? What else was there on that survey? I know there was one I remember asking people. It was like an experimental question. This is right before we switched from 2 poles for trolling to 3.
Yep.
Is there anything like that I missed, or that's still going on right now?
Yep, so when you were here, we were just about to implement the 3 lines per angler. This year we're going to be asking about the spiny water flea,
okay,
and its prevalence on especially people trolling, like if we're seeing accumulations of spiny water fleas. We're trying to understand the relationship between spiny water fleas and yellow perch angling success. So that's just one tidbit of information that is going to be, included in that. Something else that we ask is just home zip code.
Okay.
We have a ton of out-of-state anglers, and when Ohio State is doing fishery valuation, how much money does Lake Erie bring to Ohio, the tourism industry or whatever?
I'm sure quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that I brought up earlier and kind of want to touch more on is kind of what we're seeing in yellow perch catch rates. Obviously, populations in the Central Basin are low. Population in the West Basin's kind of right around average. But our angler catch rates are way lower than what we would expect at these population levels. And I think part of that reasoning, yellow perch now are eating way more invertebrates than they were even like a decade ago. It used to be more 50-50 split between shiners and other fish species and invertebrates, and now we're seeing like 90% invertebrates. So big contribution to that is spiny water flea. They're an invasive zooplankton, and yellow perch like to eat them, especially the adults. So most of our diets are spiny water fleas. One way that you could maybe hedge your success a little bit, spiny water fleas don't like warm water temperatures. So above 75 degrees, we start seeing their populations decline. So that's kind of resulted in a shift from the best yellow perch bite historically was September and October, and now we're seeing kind of the end of July and early August it's usually like a 3 or 4 week window where yellow perch fishing is really good because spiny water flea abundance is dropping. We're also seeing people that are going out early in the spring and late in the fall, so before May and after October are having some pretty good catch rates when spiny water fleas are also dropping off population-wise.
And those guys are still just using whatever shiners they can get their hands on. There's no other tactics you could recommend for these guys, or you just think get a hold of shiners and find the fish? Yeah,
I think finding the fish. A lot of people have been experimenting with downsizing, using cut shiners, and just more finesse type rigs, more drop shot than the traditional wire spreaders. A lot of people were messing around with the saltwater rigs, I forget, sabiki rigs.
Okay.
And I don't know if that necessarily improved catch rates or not, but I mean, people were getting inventive trying to find ways to catch fish, but I think temperature has really been kind of the key component there. When we're above 75 degrees, that's when you should try and get out perch fishing.
Very good.
Yep.
All right, Zach, tell me a little bit about the vessel here. What does this do for your research program, and how does it work?
So this is our one of our electrofishing vessels. And so when I say electrofishing, I mean we're shocking the water. Up front, we've got these dropper probes that go into the water. In the back here, we've got a generator. So these dropper probes actually electrify the water between the probes and the bow of the boat. And then what we can do is it stuns the fish, we can net the fish out, and then transfer them to this live well midship in the boat. And then when I'm driving the boat, I have that gray control box. I can use this box to modulate whatever I need to do with the electricity and shock the water. So we go out on this survey nighttime between June and July, and we're trying to catch representatives of the fish community. So we're not just looking for any one species like we do with trawl. It's more how many different species of fish are at different points in the near shore of the lake. So we do catch largemouth bass and bluegill for this survey, but we also get all kinds of other stuff, suckers and drum and shad and carp and stuff like that.
So more of a shallow water survey. You're not going typically, I mean, how deep are you trying to stay?
This is only effective in like 8 foot of water or less. So it's pretty shallow. The range of the field is not very big. It's probably only 10 feet on the other side of the boat. So it's pretty small where we can actually shock and stun fish.
You may have already mentioned it, so how many times does this get used throughout the year? And like, what are the times of the year you usually do it? You may have already mentioned that. And if you did, I'm sorry.
So June and July, we have our nearshore electrofishing survey, June and July evening. So we go out at night because the fish come out and come up in the water column, so they're shock easier. So we'll use this anywhere from 7 to 9 different nights over the course of the summer. But then we also use this vessel as a tagging vessel, so we can tag, we can go shock smallmouth bass and stuff like that, stun them temporarily, get them on board, and then we can actually put tags in them and then release them.
I can't wait to see how it works. Let's have a demonstration.
Yeah.
So electrofishing sounds kind of dangerous. I'm sure there's some sort of safety devices on this boat to prevent any misfortune from happening.
Yeah, absolutely. It is dangerous. You could potentially have your heart stopped if you fell in the water while we were shocking, or at the very least, it wouldn't feel good. Trust me, I've done it. So we have, so in addition to this box, so I have an emergency stop here. I have all the controls here, so I can turn this off if I need to. But I also have a pedal down below me that I have to keep on. this pedal right here, if I press this down, we shock. If I come off, we don't. And then if you look up on the bow where you're going to be netting, each of those 2 black mats is actually a pressure sensor. So if you're not standing on, if we don't have people on both of those pressure sensors, we stop shocking. So if you reach too far over for a fish or something like that, the juice immediately cuts off and you will not be shocked if you fall in the water.
I got you. Smart.
Yeah, this worked out well. Good weather day.
Yeah, we really lucked out with the weather. We're talking about like, oh, can we even get this boat out and shocking? Because even if there's like 1 foot waves, it's still like the droppers will come out of the water and stuff, and it's really annoying.
Yeah. Gotta learn sometime.
This is a good practice for if I'm gonna. It's like my tryout if you're gonna have me out later.
Whether or not you're gonna get invited back.
Yeah. So I haven't been schooled on this.
Yeah. So.
Is this the right end? What knots did you go to?
Yeah, just that looks about good. Just so they're mostly submerged.
Should I have this on my left side? I'm more of a right-handed person.
But I'll switch sides.
Is this actually where it should be? Probably.
No, I mean.
Or you think you can do it that way?
Yeah.
Oh! What was that? Kind of carpet
That was shad.
All right, you good?
There we go. It's a little better. Would you guys typically do this run if it was nighttime? Or is this just because we're so close that...
Yeah, for our survey work, we do some stuff during the day for tagging just for logistics, but like the standard survey that we do starts half an hour after sunset.
Okay.
And, you know, we try and get as many sites done in a night as we can, but...
so how long are you guys usually out then per night? Is there like a quota you got to meet first and then you'll kind of call
No, we just try and do like 2 or 3 sites, so that usually puts us back like 1 or 2 in the morning.
I gotcha.
Sometimes a little bit.
That's a big one.
Gizzard shad. Oh, big buffalo.
Look at that. Look.
Yeah, I can't get to him.
Oh yeah.
The buffalo. Get him, Jake, get him.
There you go.
Look at that.
Get the foot down.
Seasoned pro. Just takes one. Everyone gets one. Tell him, Brian.
Everyone gets one.
There it is. How many guys do you usually have out on a netting electrofishing day?
It's a 3-person crew, so
Okay.
2 netters and an operator.
I got it. I tell you what, it takes a little skill probably on the operator's job to kind of keep you in the spot, but not really run into the rocks.
Yep.
That's why I like today. It's perfect. You don't really have any wind to fight with at all.
Right. Yeah, darkness is just another element.
You guys have a bunch. I mean, you guys have a whole lot of lights up here. Do you guys have headlamps?
Bunch of LED lights. It lights it up pretty good.
Oh! Whoa!
Oh no.
There you go.
There's a big buffalo behind you, Jake.
I missed it.
Yeah.
It was back here? Oh, hey.
Oh, quillback.
There's another one down here, Brian.
That's your side of the boat, man.
Yeah, that old twofer. Oh, I'm sorry, bud. There it is. Woo! Heating up.
Getting there.
I didn't even see that. How'd you see that? Was it down here?
Experience? No, I just saw it flash.
That's what I
behind
mean.
us.
Yeah.
I ain't netting a gizzard shad anymore. We already got one of those.
So quillback, huh?
Yep.
Heard of those.
Yep, one of our native sucker species. They're in the, there's a drum right there. Sandusky River really thick right now. We were out last week shocking, and the quillback are definitely in there spawning after the walleye.
Do you see a lot of predation from cormorants? I mean, that must not be that big of a concern if there's so many of them on.
I think right now, I don't know if it's done or not, but U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is like working on a quota system, you know.
Basically to harvest them.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Tell you what, when those suckers fly into
There's a nice smallie.
when they fly into a V,
There's two largemouth out in front of us too.
That one tag.
There's a bunch of largemouth up there, Zach.
That's probably enough.
oh, what is that?
A bunch of largemouth up there.
Oh, is there?
Is that all right if I net this? That's a gizzard shad, ain't it?
Yeah, that's a gizzard shad.
I'll leave them.
Get them 3 bass.
Well, I'm gonna leave you for that one. Or I guess I can get them all. You got that one? I'll take the
Yeah, I'll
next
get
one.
that one.
Little bluegill. Hey, while you're down there, pal. What do you think? Yeah, I think we're good there.
I think we're good.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, if we wanted, we could show off a few of the species. We caught a fair amount of species.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get the smallmouth. You're excited about him.
Yeah.
And if the aerator's too much, I can turn that off briefly.
Got some nice color for it.
And as you go through them, you can release them too.
Okay. Is there anything else you don't want us doing?
So why don't you
Anything?
tell us something about the fish?
Yep, so we got our 2 native black bass species here, smallmouth bass and a largemouth bass. You know, typically see smallmouth more in the main lake and kind of largemouth in the near shore and backwater areas, but 2 nice fish we got here.
And this is what you focus most of your studies on, are the black bass species.
Yes.
I got
So
you.
for this nearshore survey, we catch a lot of the largemouth, and we do keep some of those for age and growth and diet. And I'm tagging a lot of the smallmouth.
Go on, buddy.
Yeah, he might take a couple minutes to come back.
You try to be easy with them, or you just kind of let them go?
Well, hopefully if we didn't hit them too hard, I may have had the settings up a little high.
Yeah, they're going okay. Got a really pretty bluegill here. Yeah. They'll be getting ready to spawn here in the next couple weeks. So. So this is a gizzard shad. This is, he's lively.
Yeah, he's good to go.
A lot of the fish biomass in the lake's tied up in gizzard shad. They're one of the main walleye diet items. This is a pretty big one. Walleye tend to focus on the young a year and yearling shad that are, 2 to 5 inches. This is a smallmouth buffalo, one of, I think we only have 2 buffalo species in Lake Erie. There's a couple in the Mississippi River drainage, but way more common than you would ever think in Lake Erie.
And here's another big one. You can see they've got a sucker mouth. They actually belong to the sucker family. So this is one of our big native suckers.
Yeah, I think that's a big mouth buffalo.
Subterminal versus terminal.
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
This guy's pretty cool.
Quillback carp sucker. They have really pronounced dorsal fin there, as you can see. Quillback.
Everyone's favorite fish to hate. This is a sheep's head or a freshwater drum. Very common throughout Lake Erie. They are, when they're small, they're a bait fish for many of our sport fishes, and otherwise they eat a lot of the invasive freshwater mussels, so they do us a favor.
You're saying zebra mussels then?
Zebra mussels, yes.
Yep, okay.
Couple small bass.
Got a different species of bass here. That's a rock bass right there. So that's related to those largemouth and smallmouth bass, but this is more like a sunfish, doesn't get very big. This is a bigger specimen. They only get up to a couple of pounds each.
So is that in the black bass family or the sunfish?
It's so they're all in the sunfish family, Centrarchidae.
Okay. All right.
And then black bass are in Micropterus, the genus,
Gotcha.
and this is in its own genus actually. This is in Amblopleides, but closer related to sunfish than it is to bass probably.
One more good largemouth.
Nice largemouth.
And another one not so nice. That's probably a year old or so. When we catch them in the summer, they're only about 3 inches long or something like that. So this one's, we'd call this a yearling, or was probably born in this time of year last year.
And so typically if we were doing this at night, you guys would be measuring every single one of those fish then. And do you guys net everything that comes to the surface then? So we were a little bit more selective there obviously,
yeah.
But you net everything that you shock then, and kind of how does that work?
Yeah, so it's a fish community survey, so we're looking to see what different kinds of species there are. We're not just focused on sport fish, we're looking for those suckers and gizzard shad and some of the other fish, just keeping an eye on what's happening in our nearshore waters. But we do actually take some of those largemouth, we'll take them back to the lab and do dissections on them. We'll remove their ear bones that we can age them with, and cut open their stomachs, look at what they've been eating, that kind of thing.
That's just with the largemouth. Do that with anything else during this survey?
We do that from other surveys. We do diet studies on yellow perch, walleye, smallmouth bass. But this survey, the only major sport fish that we capture is largemouth.
Very good. Great, guys. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for the demonstration.
Sure.
I guess since we're talking about technicians, so what are some part-time jobs, and how do people go about getting one of those jobs? What do they need to have? What is a good background that they need for maybe schooling or whatever? Like how would someone get a job here, even if it's just part-time?
Yeah, so most of the time we're looking for people with 4-year degrees in fisheries, or at least an environmental science field. But we have 9 kind of part-time technician positions, 6 creel clerks, 2 office technicians that go out and do the other surveys with us, and then we actually have a position that's through Ohio State that's a 2-year position, kind of early career, I don't know if you want to call it like internship type scenario, where you're doing research. We give you a research project and help you hopefully publish a paper, peer-reviewed manuscript. But
I got you. Is that a paid internship thing then through here? Okay.
Yep.
And that's so you already have one of those currently right now?
We do not.
Okay.
So we will probably be posting that position again here soon. We went through 1 round of interviews, and
so you said it was through Ohio State. So does someone have to apply to you, or is there something they have to go through?
They'll have to apply through Ohio State.
Okay. So you probably get a lot of Ohio State Buckeyes then that do that necessarily, or is there a different way to get through? You don't have to be.
No, you don't have to be a student at all.
Okay.
It's just it's posted on Ohio State. You're an employee of Ohio State working for us.
I got it. Okay.
So, yep.
You want me to raise? Well, I guess we'll raise these back up when we get back.
Hopefully we got some good footage.
I think so. So you cover, like, when you guys are doing it, just a bunch of the, like, you guys go in the marinas, most of the breakwalls, like how wide do you go in the bay area?
How long are the transects? 500 meters?
Most of them are 500.
Yeah, so it's just a straight shoreline, or a segment of shoreline,
For
and
500 meters.
yeah.
Like 15 minutes of shocking, something like that.
Okay.
And like you saw, I was driving to go in and out.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I normally do.
All right.
Because the fish will feel the field coming. So if you just shock in a linear fashion, you'll really just herd them. You'll push them.
Yeah.
If you can go in and out of the shoreline, a lot of times you can trap them against the shoreline and shock them.
We did not shock that one.
Which one? Oh.
Yep, cormorant.
Is that a problem?
Everyone's favorite.
Yep, they are a fish predator.
The sheephead of the sky, huh?
Yeah.
That one's got a broken wing.
They're native, but yeah, they've definitely rebounded in huge ways since DDT was banned. They're one of the species that was affected by that, and obviously doing much better now. So there's going to be potentially some population control efforts by Fish and Wildlife Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, but that's still kind of ongoing.
Is that something they'll head, or are they going to let sportsmen go out and, like, say,
it's
have a harm, like a
to
hit?
be determined still. It could be very well a hunter opportunity.
After these fish are shocked, do you see them typically staying right where they're at, or will they travel elsewhere, or how does that work after they're shocked?
So for the most part, they're just going back to wherever they were. I mean, we know shocking can be pretty disruptive to them, so they might end up moving a little bit more than they normally would. But yeah, normally they just kind of go back to their normal habitats. And we see that when we're tagging off of this boat too. So when we're actually putting in transmitters, we get to see where the fish go. And a lot of times, initially, they don't move that much. It might take them, a week or two to start going elsewhere.
Sure, gotcha. I'm joined here by another biologist. This is Matt. Matt, you're working here. Why don't you explain kind of what you do here on the grounds, and then also maybe what this machine is that we're looking at, a little bit about your background, education, stuff like that.
Yep. So I'm Matt Fauset. I'm a biologist at the Sandusky Fisheries Research Station. I've been here for about 9 years now. I'm in charge of our fall gillnet survey, which runs from late September through early to mid-November. That's our primary fisheries independent survey of the adult walleye population. So we go out, set nets from Toledo all the way down to Conneaut. Those fish overnight. We bring all the fish back here, cut them open, process them, see what they're eating, if they're a boy or a girl, mature, immature, how old they are, things like that. And that's a really important data source in our stock assessment modeling that uses that data along with data from all the other jurisdictions around the lake to estimate how many walleye are in the lake in any given year that ultimately is used in the harvest quota setting for the walleye. So in addition to the gill netting that I'm involved with, I help with a lot of the acoustic telemetry projects that are ongoing in Lake Erie and beyond. So acoustic telemetry, this is what we use to listen for the tagged fish. So this is an acoustic receiver, and the acoustic receivers listen for the acoustic transmitters. So this is a couple of different sizes of acoustic transmitters. They come in much smaller than these. This is one that would go in like a 15-inch walleye. This is one that might go in a 20-inch walleye. And these have been acoustic signal that allow us to track the fish for 3 to 10 plus years. And in order to get the tags in the fish, we're out there either angling for the fish. Sometimes in the spring, if we're in the rivers, we'll electrofish like you guys just saw, or we'll use gill nets on like the reefs. We catch the fish and then try to get them on our surgical board as quick as we can. And we use this, which is a TENS unit, which you might use if you have back pain, if you're an old man like myself. But this puts electrical current through the fish, and that basically knocks them out so that they're not fighting us on the surgical board. We irrigate their gills so that during the surgery process they're getting fresh water, and so that they're able to breathe. We try to keep it as stress-free for the fish as we can, and then make a small incision, stick the tag in, and then they get a couple of stitches, and then we give them 5-10 minutes to make sure that they're good, and then they're released, and we're able to follow the walleye or whatever fish. We've tagged smallmouth, lake trout, invasive species like grass carp, sea lamprey, lake trout, lake sturgeon, muskie, you name it. We've probably put a tag in it. And this is all done under the umbrella of GLaDOS, the Great Lakes Acoustic Telemetry Observation System. So if people that are watching this go on Google and they search GLaDOS, it'll be the first website that pops up, and you can read all about the projects on Lake Erie, Lake Huron. All the Great Lakes have different projects that are studying all kinds of fish species. So after the fish are tagged, we're generally interested in looking at movement rates, migration of walleye, smallmouth, lake trout, whatever fish species we've tagged. We're generally interested in where those fish are moving through time. So like specifically for walleye, when we tag fish during the spring, when they're on the reefs or in the Maumee River spawning, we're interested in knowing what fraction of those adult fish leave the Western Basin after spawning. And then of those fish that leave, where do they go? Are they moving north into Lake Huron? Are they moving into the Huron subbasin? Or they go all the way down to New York and Buffalo? And we've been able to see that is like less than 10% of the fish that we tag in the spring stay in the Western Basin year round. Most of those fish are leaving into the Central Basin. 25% of them are just east of the islands. Most of them are moving like to the Cleveland area, and then the last 25% or so are moving even further to the east than that. And then it's like fewer than 1% of the fish that actually leave Lake Erie and head like north to Lake Huron.
So how exactly are you finding them, these fish, again, with those trackers in them? It's with this, do you guys see a computer, or are you guys driving out with?
Yeah,
with
so
that?
imagine this is strapped to like an 80-pound concrete block that's on the bottom of the lake or the bottom of the river. There's a battery in them that are good for about, usually we try to get back to them every year, but they'll collect data for up to 2 years. Okay. And then as that tag signal goes off, the tag goes off every, say, 3 minutes on average. And then that tag is heard by this, and that's got the hydrophone. And then the tags actually don't have any information on where the fish are going. They just allow us to track the fish. And then we have to go and record or recover these, download them, and then assemble the database. And usually it's not real time. It's like a year after the fish has been in that location that we're able to piece it back together. Gotcha.
Since you've been doing this, have you seen any like super long traveling fish since you've been doing this? Like what's one outlier that you see where maybe you saw a certain fish go super far?
Sometimes walleye will go over Niagara Falls.
Oh, really? Yeah. That you've tagged right out here?
Yeah, that fish was a Sandusky River fish. You see them swim to the East Basin. You can see them pinging around as they're doing well, and then eventually they enter the Niagara River, and you can track them before they go over the falls, and then there are receivers on the lower Niagara River as well before that empties into Lake Ontario, and you could see I presume, dead walleye at that point.
Sure. Gotcha. Have you had any anglers call and say, hey, I found one of these in fish?
Yeah, way more than you would expect. Given the millions and millions of walleye that are out in the lake, you would think that the recaps would be infrequent, but it's usually about 25% of the fish that get tagged and released in any given year at some point will end up coming back through this office, harvested either by anglers or commercial folks north of the border in Ontario, or sometimes people just find the tags washed up on the beach too.
Oh, really? Okay. Very interesting.
All of the tags should have a phone number on it. Not all of them have $100 rewards, but all of the walleye tags do have $100 rewards. So if you catch one and you see it while you're filleting your fish, give me a call and maybe you'll get $100.
That sounds like a good deal to me.
So this is a gill net. This is what I was talking about earlier that gets used in the fall to index our adult walleye population. So this is part of one panel that gets used. So we set these overnight. Each gill net is composed of 12 different panels, each with a little bit different mesh size. And that's designed to target different sizes and ages of walleye. So this is a little bit bigger mesh, so you might expect to catch 20 to 25 inch fish in this mesh. Yeah, like I said, they're fished usually at the surface overnight, so 12 to 15 hours. We set them, go back and pull them in the morning, and then bring them back here as quick as we can to start processing the fish to see what they're eating, sizes, ages, all that good stuff. When we're fishing them, we call them keg nets, so you can fish them either at the bottom. So this is the float line at the top, so this will float up, and this is a 6 foot tall panel. And this bottom is a lead line, so it fishes, in theory, the top 6 feet, or it's like 6 to 12 feet. So we keg them, so we put floats on them with 6 foot string lengths on it, so it'll go down 6 feet below the surface and then fish that 6 to 12 feet. And obviously that'll change with waves and how the net sits.
At the end of the day, guys, what are you guys doing with all this data and how can people find it?
Zach, you want to talk about the angler report?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been working on recently is generating the Lake Erie Angler Report. And so what that is it's taking data from all of our different surveys and delivering it in a form that most anyone can understand. So we have a whole bunch of different graphs in there that can show you things like what the walleye hatches and the yellow perch hatches are like. We have graphs to show you, like, if you catch a walleye that's 15 inches long, how old is that walleye, or that kind of thing. We also have a number of fisheries information notes that are 1 or 2 page flyers that we have here at our office that deliver a lot of information on one specific fishery. So walleye and yellow perch, or maybe some of the invasive species and stuff like that too.
Gotcha. What else was there you guys touch on?
Maybe Matt can speak more to this, but all our data eventually goes to task groups, whether it's walleye or yellow perch, or we have forage task groups, but it's collaborations with the other agencies on the lake. I don't know if Matt wants to talk.
Yeah, so this is, if folks every spring hear about the Lake Erie Committee releasing what the harvest quota is going to be for this year, that's what all those task groups are housed under. So there's the walleye and yellow perch task groups. And within any task group, there's membership from each of the different states or the province of Ontario with biologists like Zach, Brian, and I. And we take all the data that we collect, whether it's the creel data, our trawls, the gill nets, we pull all of that information into a single report that talks about fishery performance across the lake, and then we put all that information together to estimate how many fish are in the lake in the case of walleye and yellow perch, and put forward information that's used by our bosses to actually set the harvest quotas each year. And so each of those task groups also has an annual report that's available online through the Great Lakes Fishery Commission's website.
So is that kind of when, was it last year, the year before, when we switched the Central Basin for perch numbers? Is that something they were in charge of deciding? Is that like an example of that?
Yeah, it was tied to that. So the decision to go from a 30 fish bag down to a 10 in Management Unit 2 or Management Zone 2, that was tied to the quota set by the Lake Erie Committee. The decision to drop like that was specific to Ohio and our decision-making process for how we allocate our quota between the commercial and recreational fisheries, but yeah, directly tied to that.
Gotcha. We talked a little bit about invasive species earlier. Maybe we'll bring it back up, but you know, some of the big ones that people talk about are your gobies, your zebra mussels. We've talked about grass carp. Can you guys talk a little bit about those numbers, their effect on the ecosystem here in the lake? Either one of you guys want to kind of start with one of those or whatever?
Yeah, I think grass carp is probably our, most visual species right now. So they're spawning in the Sandusky and Maumee rivers, and we're working with the University of Toledo. They actually have what are termed strike teams. So they have 6 electrofishing crews that are going out on these rivers and trying to actively remove grass carp. They're one of the 4 invasive carps, Asian carps. They're kind of leaf concern, but they consume a lot of aquatic vegetation, which in turn is good habitat for our native species, so that's why they're a concern right now. From what we're seeing, those numbers are holding steady, if not decreasing, in the Sandusky River. Obviously, it's an evolving situation, but something we're trying to get in front of and control.
And something, Zach, you talked about earlier with the zebra mussels, kind of about the positive and negatives that those have brought about in the lake.
So the zebra mussels ultimately are having potentially a negative effect on the food chain because they're cutting out the base of it. So yeah, they might make the lake a little bit clearer, but not necessarily great for our sport fisheries.
Now, how about algae blooms? Do they have anything to do with algae blooms that we've been seeing, harmful algae blooms at all?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of complex effects that we don't understand when those things are interacting. They can take up harmful, like the actual toxins from the algae and then ingest it. And then if we have like sheepshead or small forage fishes like round goby go and eat those zebra mussels, they can actually send those toxins up the food chain potentially. We don't think that that's a huge effect, but it is possible.
Yeah, and talking about gobies, I mean, what have you guys been seeing? How have they been interacting with the ecosystem in the lake over the last, I'm sure they've been here a while now, but what have you guys seen with that?
Yeah, so gobies, when they first came in, they're an egg predator, and there was, a lot of concerns that they would, bottom out some of our hatches, especially, smallmouth bass was kind of one of the forefronts, but, with invasive species, when they first get into the system, they explode in numbers, and then eventually they fall back down to earth and kind of balance out, and that's kind of where the gobies are at, and we think they're, kind of at their carrying capacity. It's actually improved the condition of our smallmouth bass, so it's basically an all-you-can-eat buffet. The gobies are coming to the nest that the bass are guarding, so we've actually seen a positive impact on smallmouth bass, but the whole thing with invasive species is, eventually one of them is going to be the tipping point that starts a cascade, so that's why it's important to keep them out of the system.
We're wrapping up here today at the Lake Erie Fish Research Center here in Sandusky. Just want to say a special thanks for the ODNR, Brian, Zach, and Matt for showing us around today.